What is good, guys? Welcome to Flav Orellana's MMA show. I'm your host, Flav Orellana. Alright, it is fight week, guys. Tomorrow is UFC Fight Island 6, I believe it is. Headlined by the Korean Zombie versus Brian T-City Ortega. We finally have come to this day. We had the weigh-ins today. Both Brian Ortega and Korean Zombie both made weight. Both weighed in at the max weight limit at 146 pounds. What exploded on Twitter was Brian Ortega ended up shaving his head. This guy had one of the best hairdos out there, but shaved his head. First thing I thought to my head was like, this guy probably had a bad weight cut, and you try to make sure that you get as every single ounce possible so you can make the max weight limit, which is 146 pounds for the featherweight division. But he says that he is donating his hair towards charity. I don't believe it whatsoever. If he would have done it, if he was going to do something like that, why not do it in the beginning of the camp or the middle of the camp? Why do it in Fight Island right a day before weigh-ins? When yesterday you were at the at the beach octagon, the octagon in the beach, doing a face-off with the Korean Zombie for the media shoot, and you still had a full head of hair. You had your man bun. Next day later, you're looking like Baldy Ed, man. Come on. You're going to really fool us that you had a bad weight cut? I mean, we'll accept it, but whatever. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, it's going to be a really good card. Is it going to be better than last week's card? Don't think so. I don't think so. Look, I'm going to tell you right now. And that main card, there's going to be 3 fights to look forward to. And I'm going to tell it to you right now. So, obviously, you're going to have the main event between Korean Zombie versus Brian T-City Ortega. It's a lot of beef. There's a lot of animosity over there. They were supposed to fight back in December, but Brian Ortega ended up having a sprain or a slight tear on his LCL and his ACL. So, they couldn't fight, and Korean Zombie ended up fighting Frankie Edgar. He ended up demolishing Frankie Edgar, and Korean Zombie moves on, to where we're at right now. But right in between all that, there was some beef because Korean Zombie doesn't speak any English whatsoever. I mean, in his most recent interview with Ariel Helwani, you see that his English has improved, but he's had the translator, with him at all times, whether it's his coach or K-pop, star in Korea, Jay Park. I never heard of him until he was walking around with Korean Zombie. Apparently, when they both ran into one another, Jay Park and Korean Zombie, they said to Brian Ortega that he's running and dodging Korean Zombie. Jay Park translated it towards to Brian Ortega. Ortega took offense to that, and he pretty much told him, it's on sight. If I see you, I'm gonna deck you. So what happens? The last event, of 2020, as of right now, when fans were in attendance for a UFC event, it was Israel Adesanya versus Yoel Romero. That was a stinker. Co-main event was obviously Fight of the Year as of right now, but Brian Ortega was in Las Vegas. Korean Zombie was in Las Vegas. Jay Park was alongside with Korean Zombie. Jay Park happens to go to the bathroom. Brian Ortega waits for him, follows him to the bathroom, and slaps the dude right across the face. Like he said, it was on sight. So here we are now. There's beef. There's animosity. Got the number one ranked overall featherweight Brian Ortega versus the Korean Zombie. He is in the top 5. It's gonna be interesting. I mean, stylistically, Korean Zombie kind of replicates what Max Holloway does. What happened when Max Holloway faced Brian Ortega? Ended up damaging, Brian Ortega. Broke, I think, his orbital bone or something like that. And there was the worst fight, worst experience, worst beating that Brian Ortega ever received when it comes to combat sports. Brian Ortega walked into that fight in Toronto against Max Holloway, 14-0. Left, 14-1. Took a first class ticket to the hospital. Now, reason why I say that is because I just said, Korean Zombie and Brian Ortega. Stylistically, this doesn't favor Brian Ortega in my opinion, but Ortega says he switched camps. I want to see what's the difference. Are we going to see somebody that has more of a good stand-up game? I know Brian Ortega is a wizard when it comes to jiu-jitsu. If the fight goes onto the floor, I do favor Brian Ortega. Another news of Brian Ortega's coach had jiu-jitsu coach had been tested positive. That's not that much of a big deal. That's kind of like, his primary source. He already knows jiu-jitsu. He's a black belt in it. He doesn't need his he doesn't need his BJJ coach there. But, as one less coach, being there. But if I had to say who wins the fight, you know what? The unknown that we don't know. The unknown of Brian Ortega in his camp, and to see how he has progressed since his last fight, which was against Max Holloway back in 2018. And considering that Korean Zombie ended up facing Frankie Edgar towards the ending of 2019, I don't know. I'm going to lean with Ortega. I'm going to lean with Ortega, forcing Zombie to tap out in the third round. I'm going to just say that Ortega leans on his jiu-jitsu. If it's a stand-up game, Ortega's going to lose. He's probably going to get knocked out in the second round. But I'm rooting for Brian Ortega. I want to see Brian Ortega face not Max Holloway, Alexander Volkanovski, because Dana White had just said the winner of this fight, the winner of the main event between Brian Ortega versus Korean Zombie, is most likely going to be the number one contender to face Alexander Volkanovski. That's a must-see right there. Because you know what? I'm not interested so much on seeing a third Alex Volkanovski Max Holloway Part 3, considering the fact that Holloway lost both fights. The first fight to me was clear-cut favorite, that Volkanovski did win. The second fight, I favored Max. But, you just can't leave it to the judges. So, I favor Ortega. Ortega's, wins this fight, will face Alexander Volkanovski. With Korean Zombie losing, I would love to see him fight Max Holloway. If he doesn't fight Max Holloway, and if he drops back down into the rankings, make him fight Calvin Kattar. That'll be a good fight to watch. And Korean Zombie, whether it's versus him and Max Holloway, they should fight on the January 23rd card, considering that none of them are champions. And I said in the previous video, Dana White does not like making champions fight on the card when Conor McGregor is being the main event because of the championship, because of pay-per-view points, and you have to favor the champion. So since Holloway's not a champion, he's due for a fight. He hasn't fought since July, and if Korean Zombie doesn't take that much of any type of beating, whether he wins or loses, if he loses, he should definitely fight Max Holloway. I'm sorry, if he loses, he should fight Max Holloway. If he wins, he should fight Alexander Volkanovski. So yeah, if Ortega loses, I don't want to see him fight Holloway, especially how bad he ended up getting messed up. If Ortega loses, I do want him to fight, I want to say Calvin Kattar. I might have to look at the rankings again. I know Ortega's one. Forgot who's two. Who is two? And I mean, these rankings are all BS. Oh no, Max Holloway's number one. I'm sorry. Ortega's number two. Do you make Ortega versus Zabit? No. How about Ortega versus Yair? No, because I want to see Yair fight Zabit. The only other person I could think of is, Calvin Kattar. But you see what I'm saying? Like, it mixes everything up. So this is pretty much, in my opinion, a must-win for Brian Ortega. Because if not, he's going to mess up the whole, projections on what should be following in line in this featherweight division. I mean, Ortega is not going to fight Josh Emmett because he has his knees pretty much, surviving, due to duct tape of all the damage that he ended up taking, tearing up his whole knee pretty much against Shane Burgos and still winning the fight. Would he fight, the winner between Jeremy Stephens and Arnold Allen? I mean, maybe, but that's pushing it right there. That's what I'm saying. This is a huge must-win for Ortega instead of Zombie. If Zombie loses, Dana, McMahon, or Sean Shelby are able to work around on scheduling him a better fight as opposed to Ortega. Moving on. The second fight that you guys should definitely be looking forward to is the co-main event, Katlyn Chookagian versus Jessica Andrade. Now, Jessica Andrade is moving up to the flyweight division. She was originally in the strawweight division. She's facing Katlyn Chookagian, and to me, it's not a favorable matchup for Jessica Andrade. Reason why? The much shorter fighter, right, facing Chookagian, who fights at distance. I mean, great length strength. She's good at length. Yeah, it says right here, Chookagian is 5'8" and Andrade is 5'1". You're talking about a 7-inch difference. With Chookagian having a 6-inch reach advantage on the arms. And this is not even counting the legs. I mean, Chookagian's legs are long. They're longer than the Brooklyn Bridge, guys. So, I don't know. I mean, Katlyn likes fighting at distance. Jessica Andrade, since she is the smaller fighter, she has to get closer in range to fighting. Doesn't favor Andrade. The only way Andrade wins if she's able to absorb a couple punches, absorb a couple kicks, making sure she's able to step into her, those punches and connecting. You know, whether it's working on the body, going for the head. She's gonna have to attack those legs. She's gonna have to throw in a couple calf kicks and then work from the bottom up at this point. Honestly, I favor Chookagian. I see Chookagian possibly winning by decision. Andrade is a tough cookie, in my opinion. It's going to be hard to knock her out. I mean, she had an excellent fight against Rose Namajunas. So, I don't know if Katlyn Chookagian wins, nothing much changes. I mean, she might have a better chance of fighting the winner between Jennifer Maia versus Valentina Shevchenko, which Valentina has owned that division. But if Andrade wins, it could change a lot of things in that division, and it could possibly shoot her up even closer to getting possibly a title shot. But Andrade definitely has to win that fight to have any type of aspirations of challenging for the flyweight title, the women's flyweight title. And lastly, the third fight to look forward to, it is a featherweight matchup between Thomas Almeida versus Jonathan Martinez. I'm very excited for this fight. Both fighters only with 3 losses. Thomas Almeida has much more of the MMA experience over Jonathan Martinez, but I'm going to go with Jonathan Martinez winning this fight. I mean, this guy does it all. I mean, this guy brings a lot of pressure. He's good on the ground game, has good jiu-jitsu, all right, can strike with the best of them. I mean, and his grappling is, one of the better ones in that division. I'm actually favoring Martinez right now. Would I say knockout? If it's going to be knockout, it's going to be in the second round. I think Martinez is going to work the body, and Almeida is going to have to work throwing a couple calf kicks, to set up for that overhand punch. I favor Martinez. I think Martinez is going to end up knocking out or TKOing Almeida in the second round. And look, those are the 3 fights you guys should definitely be looking forward to in the main card. As for the prelims, the fights that really stick out in my opinion is John Phillips versus Park John Young. It was kind of a cool moment that they took a selfie, in the face-offs. John Phillips, famously known as the guy that got beaten up by Khamzat Chimaev. I want to see how he bounces back. His first fight after taking so much punishment in those first 2 rounds against Chimaev. And Park Jong Young, I mean, is he gonna be able to put John Phillips away? I mean, in my opinion, John Phillips is taking this fight a little bit too soon. In my opinion, with the amount of damage he ended up taking against Chimaev, but we'll see. And you got a women's flyweight bout between Jillian Robertson versus Paulina Bora. I can't pronounce this name. How do you say this thing? Borrello. Look, Jillian Robertson, I think she has a little bit more at stake with her recent losses against Macy Barber and so on. I mean, Paulina Borrello, I mean, she's playing with house money in my opinion. If she's able to get a big victory over Jillian Robertson, that's going to further move her up in the rankings. I'm looking forward to seeing those two ladies fight. I see, in my opinion, Jillian Robertson winning because it's more of a must win, because she has experienced some bad losses in her most recent fights. But if Paulina's gonna win, she's gonna win on the ground game. All right, guys. So that's everything that I got to cover for this week's Flav Orellana's MMA show. Thank you for tuning in. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Share this with your friends. Share this with your parents. Share this with your brothers and sisters. Share this with your grandma. Make sure grandma watches this thing too. All right. Thank you for watching this show, and I will give you my thoughts and opinions for UFC Fight Island 6, most likely on Sunday. All right, guys. You guys have a good night, and I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.